Welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon, and with the Chabad House of Delmar, and we have our, maybe we could say our co-host Mark Ronich with the statewide news service. And welcome to the Jewish View. I should say welcome. You're part of it already. Mark,
good to be here.
When we're always here, we have some politician and someone from the government that is telling us about the inner workings. But now we're all alone. Now you can tell us the real secrets here behind the government. But there are things that we need to talk about without interviewing people. Tell us, first of all, what you're trying to do with the statewide news service.
Well, I'm trying to branch into a new concept in the internet. First of all, when I started statewide news service in 1980, I was customizing news reports to radio stations around the state, and by 1990, I was reporting for 50 different radio stations. They were mainly mom and pop owned radio stations. They were smaller stations, but they were all around New York State in just about every county. And we had, and it was good. But by the time the mid '90s happened, there were these conglomerates that were taking over, like Clear Channel, were taking over the small mom and pop radio stations. So there were fewer and fewer opportunities for me to provide a customized local newscast, because the newscasts were becoming 2 to 3 minutes. They're becoming headlines, 1 or 2 sentences for each story, and it was weather and traffic and commercials in between the 2 minutes of time after the national news. So it really wasn't that much room for me to do any significant reporting.
Can I just interrupt? Now, I know that obviously you were hurt by the monopolies, if we want to say, but I'm thinking back just even, and I've heard things that it's really not good for a free media. I mean, you have 2 or 3 people controlling the whole, or companies controlling your stories.
And cable is really the same way. When in the 80s and 90s, there were these mom and pop radio cable systems around the state, and then it became Time Warner, Cablevision, and Adelphia, and then Adelphia went bankrupt and had some issues that Time Warner went in and filled the gap of Adelphia out in Western New York. I remember visiting one cable operator in Warsaw in Wyoming County, and they
it's in New York.
Irv Toner, that's right, Warsaw, New York, and Wyoming County. It's the county seat. And we wanted to, and Irv Toner, he's 80 years old, he was the owner of the cable. He says, they're going to have to take this away from my cold, dying hands, because I want this. This is what I created. This is my legacy. And Time Warner eventually bought them out, I guess, or passed away. But this was how proud people were to own a small cable company. We used to be called Capital Cablevision before Time Warner bought out Capital Cablevision. So the cable industry changed, and I was trying to jump into the cable business in the late 80s, early 90s. And then, things kind of got away, and the economy and all that impacted my efforts. So I went behind the scenes and I started working on political campaigns. I worked for Republicans, Democrats, Independence Party. I worked on mayoral campaigns, gubernatorial campaigns, state senate campaigns. I mean, you name it, I ran the gamut. It didn't matter what the label was of the candidate. If it was a good candidate, someone I believed in, I was ready to help out, and I earned a living that way. I was also the executive director of a political party in Albany County, and I also was and I've had a lot of fun getting in the mix of behind the scenes, being, as people might call me, a political operative. And I had a new title. I went from journalist to political operative. Then I started working for Water Technology Magazine in the middle of all this, and I got the sense of what working for a trade publication would be like. And everything had to do with water treatment and wastewater management. And I never realized that cryptosporidium and giardia would be in my vocabulary. But here we had all these issues that had to deal with water quality, and water is the source of life, and water. It was very educational for me. Then I went ahead and I got the idea that when the World Trade Center collapses, it does, for Water Technology Magazine, it doesn't matter that it was a terrorist attack. It matters what happened to the water quality. That was their focus. What happened to the quality of the water? It didn't, there could be a fire, there could be a plane crash. It doesn't matter what the cause was. It matters how did it impact the rivers and the streams and the lakes and nearby water. So I really, that really stuck with me. I did the reporting for over a year, and I started working for the Jewish World for a little bit recently, and a few years ago, and I saw that there's a niche that the Jewish World is not capturing, and I did that for a little bit for them, but it takes time to deal with original reporting. So what the Jewish World does is they have wire service stories, they have cradle to grave announcements, and they have rewritten news releases. If it doesn't come into the newsroom with a news release, and they're not going to go out and capture it and try to retain it. So I don't want to compete with the Jewish World, but I realize that between my experience at Water Technology Magazine and the Jewish community here, that there is something missing. And what's missing? Well, what's missing is that we don't have a real identity. I grew up in Brooklyn, and when I go back to visit my friends and family down in Brooklyn, they say to me, well, we know why you came to Albany, to go to school, to go to college. I went to University of Albany, but why'd you stay? What's up there? I mean, it really looks like there's a vast wasteland of Jewish life and culture to the folks who live outside this area. Even some people within this area, it looks like a vast wasteland of Jewish life and culture, because we don't have an identity. But we have a very rich and diverse and inspirational community here. We're the largest Jewish community between Muncie and Montreal. There's more than 20,000 Jews living in the Greater Capital District. And we have more than 50 congregations. 50 congregations in the Greater Capital District. What do I call the Greater Capital District? 16-county area, the same 16 counties that the TV stations use for their coverage. So you have Columbia, Greene, Delaware County to the south, you have Herkimer, Hamilton County on the west, and you have Essex County and the southern Adirondacks in the north, and then you come down the east side of New York State, and the only county that doesn't have a congregation is Washington County. There are congregations in every county, and there are some real gems and jewels. We have 2 synagogues that are on the National Historic Registry in Tupper Lake, which is southern Franklin County near Lake Placid, Essex, northern Essex, southern Franklin. And then in Greene County, the Hunter Synagogue is on the National Historic Registry. And people don't realize that, how it takes a lot to become part of the National Historic landscape. So I really think that we have a mosaic here, a beautiful mosaic, that wherever you fall on the spectrum of Judaism, we have a place for you here. And I want to make that case. So I went out and I started this website called JBizTechValley.com. Now you might have heard of J Street or J Date. Well, this is JBiz. And we have more than 600 Jewish business owners that I found so far in the Greater Capital District.
That are Jewish?
That are Jewish-owned businesses. Amazing. Now, there are 6 or 7 Jewish-owned non-kosher restaurants, which boggles my mind, because it's probably just as easy to set up a kosher restaurant as a non-kosher one and just market it as a restaurant that just doesn't mix meat and cheese, but it just happens to be good food, and it works that way in so many other places around the country. But we have these people, Jewish people, interested in owning a restaurant, but they don't seem to see the appeal of marketing it just as a restaurant with good food that just happens not to have meat and cheese mixed.
And one person always told me, he says, wherever every corner you see a Chinese restaurant or
pizza place,
they're always there, and to throw up a Jewish restaurant, a kosher restaurant.
Well, here
you don't see,
here you have a gentleman who I knew from Mill Basin in Brooklyn, whose father was one of the founding members of the synagogue I grew up in, Flatbush Park Jewish Center, and he lives in Chatham now, and he owns Our Daily Bread, which is but it's not kosher. His name's Tzvi Cohen. And with a name like Tzvi, you'd think, he came up with an Orthodox background, but I would think that he would want to have more of a kosher bent. I mean, it's a bread plate. Make the bread out of, in a kosher way, and make it a kosher bakery or something.
Hard to make kosher.
Right? So I would think that, there could be some There is a kosher pizza and falafel in Hudson that's under the hashgacha of Rabbi Fried, which is a conservative hashgacha, which might not be for proper and good enough for some people, might not be proper, they might not hold by it for some, but others in the community, it is fine and not a big deal. So, I'm not promoting one or the other, I'm just saying that, that's there. And that's what this website is about. The website is to show everyone that no matter where they are on the spectrum, if they want to move to Albany, if they're coming here for a job, or they're coming here because they want to get out of an urban area that might be crime-ridden, they want a safe community, they can find a place for themselves in a spiritual way here in the greater capital district.
And is it taken off? I mean, there's advertisements.
You know what? It's funny because I want to have a column on there called News Jews Can Use. And I think that's been catching on with a lot of people. And, I learned from the Jewish world that there are, like the Federation, Jewish Federation of Northeastern New York would say, I want an article in the paper that's written this way. And we give you $25,000 a year. And if you don't do it this way and you get us angry at you, then we're not going to cut you off, but we're going to reduce, maybe we'll give you $15,000. And you can't afford to lose 10. So do it our way, and this is the way we want it. And I was appalled by that, absolutely appalled. But that's their choice, the way they want to rewrite a news release and the way they want to listen to people. I don't want to be beholden to advertisers. I don't want that. So what I'm doing here is that I have these 600 Jewish business owners. I have with each one of these, it's a free listing. But if they want an upgraded listing, for example, a link from my website to theirs, if they want a hyperlink, if they want a certain phone number omitted, if they want to have their listing customized in any way, maybe a yellow background or some way where it jumps out a logo on, to identify their business, if they wanted something like that, I would say it's not that much money, $180 a year.
No, that's really
very,
very reasonable.
Very reasonable. $15 a month. It's no big deal for most businesses. So I figure even if half of them, come through, half of the businesses, that's going to be a good step and show an investor that there's something here, and then I'll get private investment. Now, if someone wants to take out an ad, I have no problem with that, but they're not going to control the editorial policy of what I'm going to write. And I'm firm about that. So what I'm going to write about is how the Jewish community is impacted by government. How are the decisions being made in Albany, in the capital, impacting the Jewish community? Not just kosher law, education, social services, the things that are important to the Jewish community. And there are lobbyists and advocates like you wouldn't believe coming up to the Capitol from the Jewish community. Advocating,
New York City, you mean?
Not just New York City, also from the local capital district. There are people who are, people who are very active. Rabbi Ross from Beth Emeth is very active on the liberal side of the Jewish spectrum. Barbara Zarin is also she's from Del Mar, she's very active on the liberal side of the spectrum. And then there's the Orthodox and the more restrictive side of the spectrum that are advocating also for their views. And sometimes they're from Orange County, sometimes Rockland County, not just New York City. They're from all over the state. They come and they want to advocate for their people. I want to find out what they're advocating. Sunlight is a great disinfectant. And I really want to show people that there's more. So I'm building a database of 10,000 email addresses. And every day through Constant Contact, I'm going to write 4 or 5 stories. And through Constant Contact, I'm going to send out the headline and subheads of these stories. And hopefully people will click on those headlines and go to my website. So they're going to have a mini Jewish newscast come to their email box every morning. And they're going to be able to see, go to my website and see the full story. And that'll drive traffic, which will then drive click-through rates.
You're going to write these stories?
I'll write the stories.
These are.
And I'm going to have video, I'm going to have audio. I'm going to be a one-man band, but
it's a lot of work.
It's going to be fun. If you don't like it and it's not fun, don't do it. And that's been my philosophy all along, as you know. The money doesn't always drive me, but I got to have a parnassa, and there will be some money coming in, so you could do the math. If I get 300 times 180, that's 54,000, and if I can get more than 54,000, that would be wonderful too, and it's all an open book. So, I think that I'll have the Jewish-run not-for-profits on there. I'll be able to have a roadmap for people who want to know what's going on in this area, and they want to move here, that they'll know what's here for them. And that'll increase the Albany Nanotech. They just recently signed an agreement with Israel. A lot of Jews coming here from Israel. There's got to be some sort of roadmap. Where are the synagogues? Where are the places to eat? Where are the places to go? Where can I have fun? Where can I do? Where's the life? Well, now if they want to live up in Clifton Park, they want to live in Albany, they want to live in the suburbs, they want to live in the rural areas, they'll have a roadmap. They'll be able to see that there's a congregation for them no matter where they want to go in the greater capital district. I'm very excited about it. I'm very excited. Maybe you couldn't tell, but I'm very excited about it.
I can tell that. No, I appreciate that you're getting into something that you want to get into. That's why I went to the rabbit myself. It's
niche. It's a niche. It's like it doesn't, when something happens, like let's say, for argument's sake, the World Trade Center collapses and and I told you about the water quality example. Right. With me, it'll be how many Jews died. All right. Well, how did that impact the Jewish community? Who were the first responders who were Jewish? What are those stories from the Jewish community? It doesn't matter that it was terrorists. You know what I'm saying? So when something happens, a scandal at the Capitol, what's the Jewish angle on it? Carl Kruger gets sentenced to prison. Maybe I go have a prison interview with him. And I write about Carl Kruger being he's in Fort Dix, New Jersey's federal prison. So I write about that. There's all these other, former Senate Minority Leader Fred Orenstein was also indicted many years ago, 20 some odd years ago. Where is his life now? Saul Wachtler, the Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals, he was arrested. Where is he now? What is he doing? How is he running his life?
You never have in the Capitol, unfortunately. You never have an end to the situation.
No shortage of crime happening amongst the legislators at the Capitol, and they're just not from New York City. They're from all over the state.
You want to find that Jewish niche, because I know you know everything about the state altogether. I mean, it could really be a general.
It could be
state.
It could be, but 1/3 of the legislature is either Jewish or what they call Associate Jewish. Associate Jewish are non-Jews representing Jewish constituencies. So when you put both houses of the state legislature together, 213 members, more than 1/3 have a connection to Judaism, to Jews in the state. Plenty to write about, plenty to talk about. And then locally, I'll have local stories. When there's something going on here, a rabbi leaves, a rabbi comes, a cantor leaves, a cantor comes, whatever executive director of the executive of the Jewish Federation is leaving, Rodney Margolis, thank goodness, and then maybe whoever comes in after him, Jewish Family Services, had a change in leadership. What are those folks like? Maybe do an interview with them, get into that. So, that's where I'm.
That's very interesting. No, I think it's great, and it really probably, you say even people, you say moving in, but even maybe people would think to move in. They're in New York City, and maybe they have a state job or a computer job, and what's to Albany? So who are they going to ask? They don't know anybody.
Go to JBizTechValley.com.
You're right. So this way, and maybe when they see, hey, something's happening here.
That's right.
That they could see, instead of being in the boom.
There are so few communities that have the mosaic that we have here, that it's just tremendous. And I want to tell that story. And that's my legacy that I would leave, because after I'm gone, there could always be someone else, right? Someone else could pick it up and do it. So
that's very interesting. No, it's worthwhile. I thought you were more with the state. I didn't know you were.
I'm branching out. You got to find the niche. Life changed. I mean, you go from customizing reports for radio stations, then you try the cable industry. You get these conglomerates, and I worked for the state. I worked for the Senate. I worked for the Assembly. I worked for Democrats, Republicans, Independents Party. I worked on gubernatorial campaigns. I did fundraising. I helped out in the Jewish community with fundraising. I did all that when I was, when I could in my 20s and 30s. Now I want to do something that will leave a legacy for this area. I think this is a beautiful area. That's why I stayed here. And I just think there's a lot to celebrate and a lot to talk about, good, bad, or indifferent. And I just think there are a lot of people who moved away from here who still might want to know what's going on
there's
here.
Also people moving in, or people maybe moved to Florida and they want to keep in touch.
Or not just Florida. I mean, Sharon, Massachusetts, Atlanta, Georgia, Virginia. There's all these.
The whole time everybody used to go to Miami Beach. Now you're right.
We have people who moved to California, moved to Washington State. I mean, I have a long list of people who moved away from here because we don't have a Hebrew high school, a yeshiva or a high school. And they wanted a better education for their children. Well, if that's one of the shortcomings and people see that we have some foundation and we have a basis, maybe some investor will want to come and have make a high school here. We once had an OU rabbi come to Congregation Beth Abraham Jacob, and his conclusion was that, look, no matter what high school you build here, you're always going to have a 5-year shakeout period where some people won't like the curriculum, it won't be for them, and other people will gravitate to here because they do like the curriculum, so they'll move here for that. But there'll be this shakeout period, so you're not going to please everyone, but you should start. And that was like over 20 years ago, and we didn't start, and we could have been a stronger community if we did. But you could start now, and then move on. I mean, how much time? How are we doing on time?
A few more minutes to talk about.
So that's good. So one of the other, I think that there's other projects I'm working on. I'm trying to get a kosher kiosk at the State Fair. There's no kosher food at the State Fair, and there are a lot of people
who... Are you talking about Syracuse?
Syracuse, State Fair in Syracuse. Yep, there's a 12-day fair. So I networked and I found a caterer out of Teaneck, New Jersey, who might be interested in moving, in setting up a cart, a truck, if you will, and serving out of food, kosher food out of the truck, closing on being Shomer Shabbos, closing Friday night and Saturday, which the State Fair will allow, which it has been the impediment in the past. But I networked enough to make that happen with the folks at the fair, and I think that's going to be something new and different coming up this summer at the fair. So stay tuned, as they say.
Stay tuned, and we'll have to visit it if that's.
I would hope so. I would hope that we're going to get so much publicity in the Jewish papers that black hats will flock to to Syracuse.
No, it's great. Well, no, it's good that a person like yourself that's what needs someone. You say it in Yiddish, a kochlefel, someone who stirs the pot up. Get things moving. See, things are there, the ingredients are there, but you got to put them all together.
And it took me 30 years to figure out those ingredients and how to put them together. So now I'm using that. That's what I like about staying here. Most people stay 6-10 years and then move on. I've been here for over 30 years, and it's just like you learn the fabric, and it's a very interwoven and very intricate pattern in this fabric. But we do have a beautiful mosaic here, and I do like this, and I've been able to figure it out where the players, look, good, bad, or indifferent, they may like me, they may not like me, but they know who I am. Say what you want about me, just get my name right. And that's all. So I just...
Well, you come from a good background. I think it's not just that you found it 30 years, but like you say, all the background that you've done, working with people and interviewing them, it just led up to this situation where you're up to.
And you know as well as anyone else, you just don't know where life's going to lead you, and you take the road that you're handed. So that's the road. That's the roadmap, and I want to, create something. Yeah.
No, that's important. No, it is the absolute truth. It's interesting when you think some people stay in the same thing so long, but I know that you have to be a little bit loose.
Well, I had time to sit back and analyze and where things are and how things are going and where things didn't go, and what's the solution, what's the reality. And you put a committee together, and they never get the answer. They come up with you're trying to figure out the end result, and it results in a camel, which you never intended. So it's just one of those things that you just hope that it does. At the end, you're better off at the end than you were before this thing started. So we'll try it out. I don't want to compete with the Jewish world. I hope they survive and do wonderful things, but I tried. That was another way of how do I overcome that, because you don't, what's the what's the halacha that you got to live a certain amount of
Well,
apart
if there's
before
room for
you?
both people, then it's not an issue. I mean, you have a big, like you say, 20,000 Jewish people,
Yeah.
plus even more that, like you say, looking into it from New York. Well, that already left, so how many more thousands
Right.
that are interested? And
But isn't there some
Certainly
halacha
not.
that you're not supposed to set up a kosher bakery, let's say across the street from each other, because you don't want to put one Jewish owner out of business or
you're
something?
right, but
What's that called? Is
it's
it-
hasagas gvul, it's called. But on the other hand, what if you're New York City? I mean, that,
Right.
and you're you know how there's 1,000 people are living in one complex across the street also. So you
Okay.
can say, hey, I'm the kosher bakery in 1 square mile, and no one can come in.
But in this
If you're
situation,
room
it would
for
be
enough
sad
people.
that, here's a newspaper that's been around since 1965, and, I wouldn't want to come along and do anything to
Hurt
harm,
them, yeah.
to
No,
harm
you're
them.
right, I
And
understand, but
I
I think if you do it right, there's room for everybody.
But-
you know.
if something was to go and, things didn't happen just right, I'm perfectly positioned to pick up where they might leave off.
Yeah.
And I say that publicly, I say that proudly, because I want this to continue, and I want us to have a media that's dedicated
No, it's
to Jewish.
important because it
Yeah.
is. It's very, very important. I mean, it's important for media in the United States. Freedom of the press is one of our fundamental freedoms, and also people know that's the way people know things.
Mhm.
Even more so, like you're saying, through the internet.
That's right.
That even more, they're just clicking on with all their devices, and it's important for people to know what's there, and that's how they know things. They don't talk to each other. They look on their machines now. I mean, they used to be 100 years ago. Oh, they talk to their neighbor. What's happening? What's doing there?
I just feel like there's one way to cut a key if you're a locksmith. And if you can use a Jewish-owned business who's a locksmith business, like Phillips Locksmith, instead of another locksmith that's not Jewish, why not go to support a Jewish locksmith?
Mark, very big success. We
Thank
wish
you.
you giving our blessing for great success,
Thank
and
you.
we'll continue talking on and see how things are growing. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
It's a pleasure to be here.